Why, hello there. I didn't see you. My name's Eliana, and if you couldn't tell, I quite enjoy video games. Today I'm going to be making a case for some of the unsung composers of the 21st century. Today, we're going to learn why modern video game orchestrations deserve to be called art music. Come along. Before we get into the games, let's establish a base for what constitutes a piece of art music. Art music's definition has shifted over the years since its first use in the 19th century. Initially popularized by the Germans, the term art music was used to distinguish common folk songs from the religious symphony music of the elites. We're talking your Handel's Messiah, Haydn's Creation, all the classics. Over time, three main aspects of art music consistently cycled in music journals. Art music consumers have high tastes, art music allows the listener to be more cultured, and the creation of art music is reserved for select composers that are higher than common songwriters. Sounds pretty pretentious, right? That's because it was. Art music was associated with the upper class, and your average citizen probably couldn't afford to see it performed live. Slowly, but surely, art music became more inclusive. Operas that featured European popular music were performed in American concert halls under the belief that the classy venue would elevate the works to art music status. The new genre of jazz joined classical under its art music umbrella. Jazz standards featured uplifting, transcendent themes that were in line with those of classical works. Composers like Gershwin began blending folk tunes and jazzy melodies into their otherwise classically minded works. Nowadays, art music separates itself from popular and folk music in a few key ways. Art music is notated, meaning there's a score for the piece. It's performed in concert halls and other respectable venues, and it's not made strictly for commercial aspects like pop songs. Now that we know what makes up a piece of art music, let's take a look at some of its more unique examples. John Cage's work 433 was such a revolutionary piece of art music that most people probably wouldn't even recognize it as music if it just came on the radio. He wrote out a score detailing 3 tacit movements for piano, though later arrangements included full orchestra. While Cage argues that the ambient noises of the performance venue create the music, it's certainly a different style from Handel. Regardless, he's following the tenets of art music. There's a score, the work premiered in a concert hall with a trained musician taking it very seriously, and it certainly wasn't composed for commercial reasons. Let's listen to another piece. It's pretty weird, right? Even though the piece uses practically the same instrumentation as traditional art music, the electronic components separate it from other works from Wind Ensemble. But despite the particle accelerator sound effects, Chicago 2012 is performed in concert halls across America. Heck, I even played it one year in my all-state honor band. As you can see, art music has truly branched out since its start 200 years ago. Back in the 1980s, video game music was limited by the capability of its console sound chip. Music could only consist of a bass line, 2 treble lines, and a simple percussion track. This style of game music, now commonly referred to as chiptune, is still a popular choice for independent video game producers. It's cheap and simple enough to make with modern technology that anyone with a computer can add retro vibes to their personal compositions. On the other end of the spectrum, recent games like Journey for the PlayStation 3 feature lush symphonic scores. Thanks to CD-ROM technology and better MIDI composition programs, game discs can fit an entire orchestra inside their coding. Journey's soundtrack was composed by Austin Wintory, and though the original incorporates some synthesizers to round out the sound, features live solo cello, flute, and other instruments. Given the gamut of soundtrack styles, I think Rod Munday put it best when he wrote that Today's video game music is more accurately described as music that has been written for or adapted to video games. Hey there! Remember when we were talking about modern aspects of art music? Ta-da! Let's review. Art music is written down, notated. Here I have part of the orchestral score for Austin Wintory's Apotheosis from Journey. What else? Ah yes, performed by professionals and in respected locations. The Pacific Symphony of Southern California played this very piece in Segerstrom Concert Hall earlier this year. Let's listen to Apotheosis one more time, shall we? And Chicago 2012. Now then, which one sounds more like typical concert hall music to you? If it were up to me, I'd say Apotheosis. The orchestration, even though it uses some synthesizers to round out the sound, is still far more traditional than Mason Bates's or John Cage's works. Aside from the work of Austin Wintory, arrangements from the Video Games Live concert series are also programmed for professional orchestras. Video Games Live takes video game music from the past several decades and reorchestrates it for a full symphony. Just listen to what they did to The Legend of Zelda's main theme. Sounds a little more professional, right? These themes are elevated to art music through their performance methods, venues, and written notation. By now, it surely seems obvious that modern video game orchestrations, like those of Austin Wintory and Video Games Live, deserve to be called art music. If 4.5 minutes of silence and ambient noise counts as art, then lush video game orchestrations should too. But, while I'd love to just stop here and call it a day, I'm afraid things are a little bit more complicated than that. For starters, classifying a work as art music has largely lost its meaning in the last few decades. While art music was initially reserved for elite religious works, now the category has been expanded to include jazz, opera, and electronic elements that just would have been unheard of in little old 19th century Germany. Aside from that, video game scores often serve a far different purpose from a symphony or even a film score. Video game scores are responsible for immersing the player in a digital world. At the end of the day, a game's atonal sound effects can be considered part of its score, since without them, the game's environment would be incomplete. Think of it like 433. Though the musical score may be tacit at times, or all the time, the surrounding sounds create a meaningful soundscape. Performing 433 by yourself in a completely empty room would be just as odd and unfulfilling as running around in Skyrim and hearing no sounds whatsoever, be it footsteps, music, or talking. Really, part of what makes modern video game music so hard to categorize is that so much of it now focuses on immersive soundscapes over Wagnerian soundtracks. Perhaps the classic trifecta of art, pop, and folk music just isn't sufficient to describe video game music. Either way, it's a fascinating art form, and one that will surely see more attention in the years to come.